I'm Dani Rowe, Olympic champion from London 2012, three-time world champion cyclist, and now mum of two little children. Ted is 5, Remy is 2. Busy mum, juggling being a commentator as my main job and trying to stay fit and active. Winning Olympic gold was the absolute pinnacle. It was something that I'd always dreamt of as a young girl. I was obsessed with sport. I wanted to become world and Olympic champion. I didn't care what sport it was in. I just remember watching it on TV. My dad was actually 2-time Winter Olympian in the sport of biathlon. So growing up, we were always super active. I've got a younger sister, really competitive in sport, but so many different sports. Never pushed into it, but it was something that I really loved. So when I had the opportunity to get involved in cycling, which happened through an identification talent system that British Cycling put in place to go into schools to test young children to see if they had the potential in cycling. I grasped it with both hands. I had the support of my parents, and we went from kind of competitive cycling as a 14-year-old up until I was full-time. Along the journey, there were so many ups and downs. Actually, at one point, I was told by a British cycling coach that you'll never be good enough, you'll never make it. So I think after winning the Olympics, it was just the most incredible feeling. It was something that I'd always dreamt of. And because the journey wasn't just an upward trajectory, I think it just meant even more for me. I had my family, some friends in the crowd, and I had to be super selfish as a full-time athlete, and it kind of went against everything that I felt like I was. My personality, I was always taught to be selfless. So yeah, I had to be a selfish human for a long period of time. I was all consumed in a bubble of cycling where to me it was everything, and I didn't leave a stone unturned. I trained relentlessly. I tried to do everything that I could to be on that start line in the best shape possible. Alongside Joanna Rousel and Laura Kenny, who she now is, competed as Laura Trott when we were riding. So it was just everything and more that I'd ever dreamt of. And I felt really, really proud that I had managed to achieve the pinnacle. And especially because it was in London, I think that made it even more special. It was a really incredible time for Britain. I think the whole country came together as one. People were talking on the tube, which I know never happens. Everyone got behind the British athletes, and to feel part of that was just magic, really, and something that I'm never going to forget. So actually, when I got into cycling, I didn't win much at all. I got my head kicked in quite a lot, and for me it was just that relentless hard work, I think, that got me to where I was. It was something that was always instilled in me from my parents, just to try and do the best in every single session that I completed, and then wherever I got, I had to be proud of that. I remember actually when I got invited up to Manchester at the very start of the Olympic journey, I was going up against 12 girls that were already on the British cycling team. They were funded athletes. I was coming up on a weekly basis from Southampton, and I almost called it an X Factor elimination process. After every major competition, someone was told that they wouldn't be good enough. But again, my parents said to me, just do your best in every single session, and however far you get on this Olympic journey, you have to be proud of. But I worked relentlessly. I mean, my discipline, looking back now, especially with children, was incredible. I remember if I was ever given, say, a 3-hour session by a coach, if I got back to the front door and my computer on my bike said 2 hours and 50 minutes, I would go out and do loops of 10 minutes to make sure that I'd completed that 3 hours. Because for me, I never wanted to get to a stage where I would think that I could have done more. So yeah, I worked incredibly hard, and it's something that I'm proud of actually, and I want to try and instill in my children, because I think whatever they're passionate in, to be successful, it requires hard work. And I wasn't actually that talented, and I think the hard work that I put in and the discipline that I had meant that I had the success that I had. So when we crossed the line in the Olympic final, it's really hard actually to articulate how it felt. And it's a question that I get asked time and time again. How did it feel to become Olympic champion? And it was honestly like all my dreams coming true. It is something that I dreamt of for so long, and to have the opportunity to compete at home games in front of a home crowd and to win a gold medal along with 3 consecutive world records. It was honestly just a dream. And to do that alongside 2 of my best friends who we'd both worked or all worked tirelessly together. And there had been so many ups and downs along the way. We'd picked each other up when we'd had hard sessions. I remember crying to my dad in the car park after tough training sessions. And then to finally do it, it was just the most incredible feeling. The crowd were amazing. The way that the velodrome was built with the acoustics in mind meant that you could barely hear someone talking next to you when the British crowd roared. And the British crowd was so different compared to any other nation who would be racing on the track. So when we did cross the line and win, everyone was just euphoric. They were so happy for us. I remember actually Sir Paul McCartney was in the crowd, and when we were on the podium, he got everyone singing Hey Jude. So for me, that song now is just really, really special. I remember standing on the podium trying to soak everything in, and just, I knew that it would go so fast, and I just wanted to try and remember everything about it. And it was life-changing. You know, the experiences, the opportunities that I've had since have been life-changing. I then carried on racing. I became world champion again in 2013. And then in 2014, I actually was trying to make it back onto the team pursuit squad, and I was out training on the road in South Wales, and I had a really bad crash. So basically, we were riding 2 abreast. It was raining, there was a pothole covered in water, and a guy in front of me hit the pothole, crashed in front of me. I went over my handlebars, and an ex-rugby player who was over 100 kilos rode straight into my back. That consequently broke 10 of my ribs, which punctured my lung, and I was in intensive care for a couple of days. And I remember, I was in agony, obviously, and I remember thinking when I was on the ground, I will never ride a bike again. I think I said that to whoever was around me at the time. And it was only a couple of days later, I was begging the physio in the hospital if I could go down to the gym. I had a chest drain in my ribs or in my lung, and I was down in the gym, in the hospital, on a gym bike. So I did get back on the bike again. Unfortunately, I didn't make the team for Rio. And I was devastated. I did absolutely everything I could to make the team for Rio. But actually, in hindsight, looking back, I think to have that one Olympic memory, and in terms of how that went, which was perfection, I wouldn't change anything now. I had the Commonwealth Games as my final target in 2018, and that was the last major medal that I hadn't won. And that was when I decided to call it a day on my career. I felt that I'd achieved everything and more that I'd ever dreamt of, and I wanted to start a family. And I won bronze at that Commonwealth Games, and that's when I decided to call it a day. So for me, the hardest thing about the crash and the injury was mentally getting back on the bike. I was really scared. So for something that I was so used to doing and so confident doing completely changed, I was terrified. So I got back on a static bike to start with. And then I remember the first time I felt comfortable to go on the road again, I actually drove down with Matt, my husband, to the longest, straightest bit of road that we could find, so that I felt completely comfortable, that I could see the potholes in front of me, I could see the road in front of me, I didn't have to brake. So I just had to take it really, really slowly. I was determined to start racing again. And actually physically, I kind of defied the odds. I remember the doctors saying to me I'd get a chest infection. I didn't, because I was exercising straight away, even with a chest drain in my lungs. After coming out of intensive care, I got back on the static bike straight away, and then I got back on the road. And it was just that mental difficulty of getting back in a group, riding again, and that fear of crashing, that I think actually completely changed me as a bike rider forever after that. I don't think really I was ever the same. It was almost like I had this fear in the back of my mind that maybe stopped me going quite as fast as I needed to, or, you know, stopped me getting my elbows out as much as I needed to in the peloton. And I think if I had had that ruthlessness that I needed really in the peloton, especially when I transitioned onto the road, I would have been a lot better, or achieved a lot more than I ended up achieving. I feel really lucky actually that when I retired, I didn't struggle. I think that was because I already had a plan as to what I was going to do. I feel like the fact that I could retire on my own terms, having made the decision for myself, was really powerful actually looking back. I think a lot of athletes struggle when they're forced out of their sport, either with an injury or a decline in performance. But that really wasn't the case for me. I'd won a medal at the Commonwealth Games, which was the last medal that I really wanted. And I'd thought about it for a long time in terms of what I wanted to do after. I wanted to start a family. I was lucky that I'd had the opportunity to do some commentating. So that was one area in which I really wanted to step into and really start a career in actually. So the fact that I had opportunity straight away to do that when I retired, I think stood me in really good stead. We'd already established our coaching company, Rowe and King, something that Matt set up a few years prior to me retiring. So I knew that I had something to step straight into. So no, I didn't struggle, which I think is quite a rarity actually in the world of professional sport, and something that I feel, lucky to have not struggled with. So since becoming a mum, I think what I've learned through sport has shaped the way I am as a mother. I think what I've learned through sport, how I've been brought up in regards to just trying to be the best I can be in every aspect of my life, and that also translates into motherhood, and that's what I try and do every day. I try and be the best mum I can be. I try and be as present as I can with the kids. I try and teach them the values and morals that I've got, and then in terms of activity, again, I feel I just want to give my children the happiest, healthiest lifestyle that I can. And with my beliefs with sport and exercise, I think they hold such a huge part in a child's life. I think especially now with the world of social media, screens, I think it's actually quite a difficult time for children. And I think sport can teach them and take them away from those hard times. I think it teaches them teamwork. I think it teaches them discipline. So much, to be honest. You know, I could list off a huge list of reasons as to why I think sport and exercise is so important for children, being outside as well. I think, again, sports just taught me all of that, that I try and instill in my kids now. I think what I would want young women, young girls to think about in terms of the pursuit of excellence is just that it takes hard work, of course, and dedication, but also to believe in yourself. I think that's something I actually lacked, and if I had more of, I could have done a lot better than I did, and I probably could have had a happier journey doing it. I think I doubted myself so much that actually that took away from the journey itself, which was so important, because those tiny snippets of euphoria when I won were highlights, but also the journey is so much longer than that. So I think if I'd believed in myself more, I would have enjoyed the process a lot more than I did. So I would just tell young girls to just believe in themselves. You know, if it's something that they're passionate in, that they work hard in, that they absolutely can achieve whatever it is that their goal is. In sport, I think it's really difficult with constant having to seek, validation for everything and anything. I had a really strong relationship actually with my coach, Paul Manning, who was actually the guy who sent me an email after a national championships where I performed well in, asking me if I wanted to come up to Manchester and start the whole process in the lead up to the London 2012 Olympics. So for me, I never kind of went out on my own whim to do something that I believe was kind of my way or the highway. I had full belief in him and his coaching ability to believe in that process and really buy into it. So no, I didn't really go out on my own, apart from previously to the Olympics, where I was actually kicked off the British cycling programme, where I had to then go out on my own through the support of my parents, find a coach, and try and fight my way back in. And that's what I did. But when I was on the British cycling team, I completely bought into their way of doing things. So yeah, I'm training for the London Marathon at the moment, and to be honest, I am my own worst enemy, because my old ways definitely creep back into my mentality when it comes to training. And it can be very difficult, because obviously when I was an athlete, I was full-time and it was all about my performance on the bike. And now I have to get my head around that the marathon and my training for the marathon comes last. You know, I'm a mum, so that comes first, my job, and I'm really, really busy at the moment with work. And then I have to try and fit in the marathon training alongside that. I've got a coach, which means I'm being set a program. So my mind actually really struggles when I can't actually do exactly what I'm told. So it's something that I feel like I'm actually learning still, even though I retired so many years ago. Now, when I've got a goal, I revert back to my old ways, in that I have to do it and I have to give this everything, and I have to set myself a hard target, because if I don't, what's the point in doing it? So that's what I've done, and that's what's made it quite difficult this year so far, because I am trying to juggle a lot, hence the voice, because I feel like I'm always on a knife edge of getting ill. I don't sleep like I used to, of course, with 2 young kids, and that was something else that was always instilled in us with British cycling, that how important sleep and recovery was to our performance. And now I don't really get the sleep or the recovery, but I'm still trying to train pretty hard, but I love it. And again, I wouldn't change that, because I thrive off goals in sport. And for my mental health, I feel like I always need some sort of goal, or I need to be exercising sort of 5 times a week for me to be the best person that I can be, because I feel that I get so much from exercise in terms of those endorphins that are released, and I can be a more patient mum, a better friend, a better wife if I've trained. So if I were to look at my daughter Remy now, she's 2 years old, and put her through exactly what I've done in terms of the journey that I've been on with my cycling career and beyond, I would absolutely 100% say yes, because I feel like I've had the most incredible life. I've travelled the world. I've met the most amazing people. I've learned so many lessons from the journey that I've been on. I've been so lucky when it comes to my work-life balance, of the time I've been able to spend with my children so far, the opportunities that I've had through what I've achieved, and even the lows, regardless of the pain. And I wouldn't never, obviously, ever inflict any pain on her. But if we're talking about, my whole journey here, then yeah, I would, because I feel like I wouldn't have changed a thing. I feel super lucky. If I pop my clogs tomorrow, I'd be a very happy woman, having led the life I've lived so far. So yeah, I would say yes to that, because I'd be happy knowing that for the majority of time she'd be a very happy young lady.